Perhaps more important than income is what one consumes. The two are obviously related. You can only consume if you have income to spend. But at the all India level, much depends on who gets the income. Recently, the government released the Consumption Expenditure Survey of households. This is after a gap of 11 years. The newly released survey highlights the fact that consumption growth has fallen significantly over the last decade. Compare, for example, consumption growth during the period 2005 to 2012, with subsequent years largely under the current administration, that is 2012 to 2023. Consumption growth was much higher during the former period, about 50% higher in rural areas in 2005 to 2012, and nearly double in urban areas. Now, there are obvious problems with any such survey, including their leaving out items like freebies and their being dependent on responders' memory. But there is no reason why these problems should be significantly different over time. So the surveys should be a reliable indicator of consumption growth. In fact, 3% is what the CSO estimates consumption growth to be in the current year, a worryingly low rate of growth. Interestingly, the survey-based estimates of consumption growth in the early years of this century, from 2000 to 2005, were also low, even though GDP growth was picking up then. High GDP growth coupled with low consumption growth suggests most income growth is going to the rich and the upper middle class. Now, why do I say this? It's because the rich consume much less out of each additional rupee of income. If a poor person gets an additional rupee, they will use it to buy better or more food or clothes. In contrast, having already bought all the essentials they can possibly consume, the rich person does not have as pressing uses for the additional rupee. After all, how many cars can they use? In sum, consumption growth, which is what matters to ordinary citizens, has been very tepid. I conjecture it is because their incomes have grown more slowly than the incomes of the rich and the upper middle class. What is sometimes called the K-shaped recovery, with the rich occupying the upper part of the K and the poor and the middle class occupying the lower part of the K. It is mirrored in greater production of premium goods that the rich buy, even as producers of mass market goods face low demand. And we'll see some of this later. So what is the bottom line of the video so far? It is that the next government will not only have to bridge the deficit between current and potential GDP that emerged after the pandemic, but it'll also have to take our growth up by a few percentage points more. Our latest GDP growth numbers offer a misleading picture, tempting the government to say mission accomplished, when so much remains to be done. Indeed, growth, as we will see, is overly dependent on government infrastructure spending, which cannot be relied upon forever because of budgetary constraints. Also, the data will indicate the income generated from current growth are not going to the middle and lower middle class. This keeps overall consumption growth and demand low. As we will see, corporate investment is also consequently weak. What all this means is after the elections, the government will have to focus on making growth more inclusive. For that, though, we need to understand where and how the slowdown really hit.